My name is Justine. I am 33 years old. I spent the last 10 years saving every single dollar I could. Last month, I finally bought the house I always dreamed of. The second the keys were in my hand, I sent out invitations to my whole family. I wanted them to come for a housewarming dinner. I worked for days to get everything ready. I made up the guest rooms. I cooked all their favorite foods. I put up pictures of our family on the walls. Saturday came, and the hours started to pass. My excitement slowly turned into confusion. Then, my heart started to break. Not one person from my family came. I sat by myself in a room full of unopened boxes. The food I cooked was getting cold. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my dad. It said, "We need to talk about the house." Before I go on with my story, I would love it if you let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Please, hit that subscribe button if you have ever felt like success can bring challenges you never expected. I grew up in a small, crowded 2-bedroom apartment. It was on the east side of town. My parents, Thomas and Linda, worked several jobs just to pay the rent. My mom was a waitress in the morning. At night, she cleaned office buildings. My dad took whatever work he could find. He worked in construction or as a security guard, depending on the time of year. My younger sister and brother, Natalie and Adam, shared one of the bedrooms. I slept on a pull-out couch in our living room. I slept there until I turned 17. We never had enough money. I can still see my mom trying to make 1 pound of ground beef last for 3 different meals. Every time, she would add more beans and a little less meat. My dad watched the electric meter like a hawk. He would yell at us if we left a light on in a room that was empty. "Electricity costs money we don't have," he would say. He would flip the switch off with a heavy sigh. It was a sigh that felt like it carried all his money worries. But even with all the hard times, we had our Sunday drives. Once a month, the mom would talk my dad into borrowing his brother's car. We would all pile in and drive through the rich neighborhoods on the other side of town. I was captivated by the beautiful houses on those streets. I would press my face to the car window. I picked out the ones I liked best. I tried to imagine what it would be like to live inside. "Look at that one, Mom. The one with the red door," I would say. I pointed at a craftsman-style house. It had a big front porch with flower baskets hanging from the roof. My mom would smile, and her eyes would sparkle. "That one is beautiful, Justine. All those windows would let in so much sunlight." But my dad always said the same thing. "People like us don't own houses like that," he would say. His knuckles would turn white as he gripped the steering wheel. "It's best not to fill your head with impossible dreams." His words didn't discourage me. They felt like a challenge. When I was 15, I talked the owner of a local diner into giving me a job. I worked on weekends and after school. I saved every single dollar. I kept my money in a locked box under my pull-out bed. When my parents learned I was working, they wanted me to help with the bills. I gave them some of my money. But I still found a way to save half of every paycheck for my future. My high school graduation was coming soon. Then, I got some surprising news. My guidance counselor called me into her office one afternoon in April. "Justine, did you check your email today?" Mrs. Garner asked. She was so excited she could barely sit still. I told her I hadn't. We couldn't afford internet service at our apartment. She turned her computer screen toward me. I saw the scholarship letter. I started crying right there in her office. It was a full scholarship to the state university. It even included a place to live. I was going to be the first person in my family to go to college. I thought my family would be thrilled about my big news. My mom was. She hugged me so tight when I told her. "I always knew you were special," she whispered in my ear. My dad just nodded. I saw a quick flash of pride in his eyes, but it was gone in a second. It was replaced by his usual worry about money. College is expensive, even with a scholarship. You have to buy books and supplies. There are living expenses. Don't get ahead of yourself. Natalie was 14 then. She seemed truly happy for me. Adam was only 12. He was too young to really get what a big deal it was. College was a lot harder than I ever imagined. The scholarship paid for my classes and a dorm room, but not much else. I got a job at the campus bookstore. I worked between my classes. On the weekends I worked as a waitress at a restaurant near the school. I barely got any sleep. But I kept my grades up. And I kept saving money. The change in culture was harder than the lack of money. A lot of the other students came from rich families. They talked about their trips to Europe. Their parents were doctors and lawyers and business owners. I learned to be careful in conversations. I didn't share much about my own family. I could feel the huge gap between their lives and mine. When I called home, our talks became more and more difficult. My mom wanted to know everything about my life at school. It was like she was living through me. My dad only asked about how much things cost. He wanted to know if my jobs were getting in the way of my studies. Natalie and Adam had less and less to say. The childhood we shared wasn't enough to connect us anymore. After 4 long and difficult years, graduation day came. I looked out at the audience again and again. I was searching for my family in the crowd of proud parents and siblings. But I only saw my mom. She was sitting by herself. She was wearing a dress that I knew she must have saved for months to buy. "Where is everybody?" I asked her when I found her after the ceremony. "Your father had to pick up an extra shift. They were shorthanded at the construction site," she said. She wouldn't look me in the eye. "Natalie has a big school project that's due on Monday, and Adam wasn't feeling very well." I just nodded and tried to swallow the lump of disappointment in my throat. We took pictures, just the two of us. I held my hard-earned diploma between us. It was only later that I realized what that day really meant. It was the start of a pattern that would shape our family for years. No matter what I accomplished, most of my family would barely acknowledge it. Their absence at my graduation was only the start. I had my marketing degree. I got a starting job at Blake & Associates, a marketing company downtown. The pay wasn't great at first, but I knew I could move up. I found a studio apartment that was a 20-minute bus ride from my office. The whole place was probably less than 400 square feet. The kitchenette was so tiny I could stand in the middle and touch the counters on both sides. But it was all mine. The rent was low enough that I could keep saving. I had a very careful financial plan. Every paycheck I got was split up. 50% went to my necessary expenses, 30% went into savings, specifically for a house. The last 20% was for everything else, like a movie or a dinner out sometimes. I kept track of every single dollar on a spreadsheet. I watched my house fund grow, little by little. "You need to live a little," my coworker Samantha would tell me. She would wave concert tickets in my face that I had already said no to. "You're only young once." She had a point, but I couldn't lose my focus. I could still hear my father's words in my head about impossible dreams. They pushed me to keep going. I wasn't just saving for a house. I was trying to prove something, both to myself and to my family. I moved up steadily at my job. In my 2nd year, I was promoted to account manager. In my 4th year, I was promoted again to senior account manager. The raises I got went straight into my house fund. I didn't upgrade my apartment or my car. On weekends and in the evenings, I started my own side business. I managed social media for small local businesses. It started with just one client, a flower shop near my apartment. Soon, I had 8 regular clients. The extra money helped my savings grow much faster. My personal life was not a priority. My friends eventually stopped asking me to do expensive things with them. They knew what my answer would be. My apartment was filled with secondhand furniture. I never went on vacation. I even worked on holidays. I knew businesses needed social media help during those times. During my 3rd year at the company, I met a man named Marcus in the elevator. He was a lawyer in an office 2 floors above mine. He had a bright smile that stood out against his dark blue suit. He asked me about the big pile of social media papers I was holding. Our relationship grew slowly. We started with coffee dates. Then we went to dinners and movies. Soon, we were spending weekends together. He was very patient with my crazy work schedule. He supported my goal to buy a house, at least in the beginning. After we had been dating for 6 months, he asked me to move in with him. "We could get a nicer apartment and save money on rent," he said. "You'd be able to save for your house even faster." He was right, but something made me say no. Maybe I was scared to mix my perfectly controlled financial life with someone else's. Maybe I was worried I would lose my discipline if I had a partner. Whatever it was, I told him no. Marcus was graceful and accepted my decision. 3 years into our relationship, we started having problems. Marcus began to say that my saving was an obsession. We fought about turning down invitations to his friends' weddings in other countries. We argued because I didn't want to spend money on trips and experiences he thought were important. There is more to life than just saving for a future that might not even happen, he said during our last argument. You're missing out on everything that's happening right now. Breaking up with him was painful. But it also made things very clear to me. I knew I was not willing to give up on my dream. Not even for someone I loved. The house meant more to me than just a building. It was proof. It was proof that people like us could have the things my father thought were impossible. My family had mixed feelings about my career success. My mom was truly proud of what I had accomplished at work. But when she visited my apartments, she seemed more and more uncomfortable. This neighborhood is so different from ours, she would say. She would look nervously at all the young professionals going into the coffee shop below my second apartment. My dad never visited at all. Downtown is too fancy for me, he would say whenever I invited him. Too many one-way streets and nowhere to park. My relationships with my siblings were changing too. Adam was now working in construction just like our dad. He usually only called me when he needed to borrow money. I offered to help him make a budget or look for a better job. He always got defensive. Not everyone wants to work themselves to death for some stupid American dream. He snapped at me once. It was after I suggested he look into a program to get certified in a trade. Natalie had married her high school boyfriend right after school. They had 2 kids very quickly. Our talks were always about her children. She never showed much interest in my life. One time, I told her my house fund had grown a lot after a good quarter with my side business. She immediately changed the subject. 8 years after I started my career, I had a realization. It happened during a meeting with a client. The CEO of a small startup was talking about buying her first investment property when she was 34. The best time to build wealth is when you have a good income, but before you have a lot of family responsibilities, she said casually. I was 32. I realized I could speed up my own plan. I had a lot of money saved. I had an excellent credit score. I had a steady income from my main job and my side business. I could buy a house 2 years sooner than I had planned. That night, I called a mortgage broker and set up a meeting. The meeting with James, my mortgage broker, confirmed what I already thought. My 8 years of strict saving and working my way up had put me in a great position to buy a home. The amount of money I was approved for was even more than I expected. But I was determined to spend less than the maximum. I wanted to make sure I still had financial security. You've already done the hardest part, James told me. He was looking over my perfect credit report and my large down payment. Most people buying their first home have a hard time with the saving part. You're in a great spot. His words made me feel good. They made all the years of sacrifice feel worth it. All those times I said no to my friends, all the secondhand furniture in my small apartments, it had all led to this. The next step was to find a real estate agent. A person I worked with recommended Kelly. She was a no-nonsense agent who worked mostly with first-time buyers. In our first conversation, I told her exactly what I wanted. A craftsman or colonial-style house. At least 3 bedrooms. For family to visit and for a home office. An older neighborhood with a lot of character. And a commute to my downtown office that wasn't too long. I have been picturing this house for 15 years, I told Kelly. I'll know it as soon as I see it. But those are the things I absolutely must have. Looking for a house was much more emotional than I thought it would be. In 3 months, we looked at 47 different properties. A few of them were almost right, but they all had some major problem. One had water damage that was hidden behind a new coat of paint. Another had an old electrical system that would be very expensive to fix. One was in a location that would have made my daily commute an hour longer. By the time we looked at the 38th house, I was getting tired. Maybe I'm being too picky? I said to Kelly. We had just left a beautiful colonial that was nearly perfect, but it had a bad foundation. Maybe I should lower my expectations. The right house is worth waiting for, Kelly told me, especially for someone who has been as patient and focused as you have. House number 42 changed everything. We were driving down a beautiful street lined with trees in the historic Oakwood district. I saw it before Kelly even slowed down the car. It was a craftsman bungalow. It had a deep front porch, original wood details, and a red door. My heart started to beat faster as we parked the car. "This one looks promising," Kelly said. She had noticed the look on my face. The inside was even better than I had hoped. There were original hardwood floors everywhere. There were built-in bookshelves on either side of a brick fireplace. The kitchen had been updated, but it still fit the character of the home, while having modern appliances. Upstairs, there were 3 bedrooms with sloped ceilings and dormer windows. They were perfect spaces for guests and a home office. I stood in the master bedroom. Sunlight was pouring in through the mullioned windows and onto the wide plank floors. I felt a sudden rush of emotion. "This is it," I whispered. I ran my hand along the door frame that was 100 years old. "This feels like coming home to a place I've never even been to before." Kelly nodded. She understood how much this moment meant to me. "The asking price is at the very top of your budget, but for this neighborhood and the condition of the house, it's a fair price. If you're serious, we need to act fast. Houses in this area usually get several offers." I barely slept that night. I kept going over the numbers in my head. I pictured where all my furniture would go in those sunny rooms. By the next morning, I had made my decision. We put in an offer for the full asking price. I also included a personal letter to the owners. I explained why their house would be the perfect first home for someone who was the first in her family to buy one. The competition was tough. 3 other offers were made on the house. One of them was for more than the asking price. The time we had to wait for an answer was terrible. I tried to keep myself busy with work. I fought the urge to check my phone every 5 minutes for a call from Kelly. 3 days later, she called. My offer had been accepted. The owners were an older couple who were moving to be closer to their grandchildren. They had been touched by my letter. They chose my offer even though another one was higher. They wanted their beloved home to go to someone who would truly appreciate it. Getting the loan approved had some problems I didn't expect. My income from my side business was good, but it created a lot of paperwork. The underwriter at the bank asked for more documents to prove my income. This pushed back our closing date by 2 weeks. "This is normal for people who are self-employed," James told me. "Your finances are very strong. It's just a matter of getting all the right paperwork together." Those 2 weeks felt like they would never end. Another buyer was still interested in the house. They were waiting to make an offer if my loan didn't get approved. I sent in my tax returns, my profit and loss statements, and my client contracts. I put together a complete picture of my finances to make the underwriter happy. Finally, the loan was approved. The closing was set for the following Tuesday. I signed what felt like hundreds of documents. I put my initials on dozens of pages. And then, they handed me the keys to my very first home. The moment felt like a dream. It was the end of a journey that had started on those Sunday drives through neighborhoods just like this one. After the closing, I asked for some time to be alone in the empty house. I walked from room to room, letting it all sink in. In the living room, I sat down on the floor and started to cry. They were tears of accomplishment, relief, and of proving my dad wrong. The daughter of renters who couldn't afford to leave a light on, now owned a piece of the American dream that had always seemed so far away. I took pictures of every room. Then I started a group text with my family, something I almost never did. "Just closed on my first house. Can't wait for you all to visit and help me break it in properly. I'm thinking of having a family dinner in 2 weeks, on Saturday, once I'm a little more settled. Save the date." The replies came in slowly. My mom sent a "congratulations" with 3 exclamation points. Natalie replied with just a thumbs up emoji. Adam didn't reply at all. Finally, my dad wrote back. "Houses like that have high maintenance costs. I hope you budgeted for repairs." Their weak responses hurt a little, but they couldn't take away the joy of what I had accomplished. I stood in the room that would be my bedroom. The setting sun painted the walls a beautiful amber color. I made a promise to myself. This house was going to be a home. It would be filled with warmth and love, whether or not my family was able to be happy for me. The 2 weeks between closing on the house and my family dinner party were a blur of activity. I had my few pieces of furniture from my apartment moved over quickly. I realized right away how small and out of place they looked in the much bigger house. The sofa that had filled my old living room now looked tiny in a corner of the new one. My little dining table for two seemed lost in the formal dining room. One room at a time, I told myself. I focused on the most important spaces first. I found a used dining table that could seat 8 people. It was perfect for the family dinner I was planning. I gave it a fresh coat of paint. I bought some new, inexpensive chairs to go with it. Once I had the basic furniture, I started getting ready for my family's first visit. This was about more than just showing them my new house. It was a chance for us to reconnect, to close the distance that had grown between us. I thought that maybe if they saw my success in person, they would understand the choices and sacrifices I had made. I paid special attention to the guest room for my parents. I spent extra money on a new mattress and good quality sheets and blankets. I knew my dad had a bad back and often had trouble sleeping when he was away from home. The second bedroom was for Natalie, her husband Troy, and their 2 kids. I set up an air mattress for the children next to the queen-sized bed. The small third bedroom, which would eventually be my home office, would be for Adam. I went grocery shopping and filled my cart with the ingredients for everyone's favorite dishes. My dad loved pot roast with carrots and potatoes. My mom had a weakness for blueberry cobbler. Natalie's favorite was Caesar salad. Adam loved buffalo chicken dip as an appetizer. The total at the checkout made me cringe a little, but this was a celebration. It was worth the cost. I added special touches all around the house. I made a photo wall in the hallway with family pictures from over the years. There was one of my mom and dad on their wedding day. There was one of Natalie and Adam as toddlers, splashing in a small plastic pool. There was a picture of all 4 of us on a rare trip to the beach when I was 12. I noticed there were not many recent photos. I hoped this visit would be the start of changing that. I put together welcome baskets for each member of my family. For my mom, I got a gardening book and some seed packets for the garden in the backyard. I imagined us planning it together. For my dad, I got a custom keychain with the house's address on it. It was a symbol that he was welcome here anytime. For Natalie's kids, I got books and coloring supplies that were right for their age. For Adam, I got a gift card to a local brewery. I thought we could go on a tour together. 1 week before the dinner, I sent out formal invitations. They had detailed directions and information about where to park. I also included a warm note telling them how much it would mean to me to have them there. At first, the responses seemed good. My mom called and asked what she could bring. Just yourselves, I told her. I'll take care of everything else. Natalie texted me that Troy had taken time off from work. She said they were excited to see the new house. Adam sent a short text that said, "I'll be there." Even that brief reply made my spirits lift. My dad didn't say anything, but my mom promised me they would come together. 3 days before the dinner, things started to change. Natalie was the first to call. "Justine, I'm so sorry, but Emma has an ear infection. The doctor said she shouldn't travel this weekend. Could Troy stay home with Emma while you and Jack come?" I asked. I was trying to save at least part of her visit. Troy's mom is expecting us to visit her on Sunday, so he needs to take Jack there while I stay with Emma, she said. Her excuse seemed to get more and more complicated. "We'll definitely come another weekend, once everyone is feeling better." I accepted her excuse. Disappointment started to settle in my stomach. That night, Adam sent a text. "My boss just put me on the schedule for Saturday. Somebody called in sick and I really need the hours. Sorry, sis." This excuse was harder to believe. Adam almost never took extra shifts. He was always complaining about his manager scheduling him at the last minute. But I knew that arguing with him would just cause problems. I replied and said I understood. I offered to reschedule. On Thursday, my mom called. It was the call I had been dreading after hearing from my siblings. "Your father's back is acting up something terrible," she started. Her voice had that familiar apologetic tone. "He can barely get from the bedroom to the kitchen today. There's no way he could sit in a car for an hour each way." "I could come and pick you up," I offered. My voice was starting to sound desperate. Or you could just come by yourself. And we could FaceTime Dad during dinner. You know he wouldn't want me to travel by myself, she answered. And he would feel awful being left out completely. It's better if we just wait until he's feeling stronger. By Friday afternoon, my family dinner for 6 had become a party for 1. I stood in my kitchen. I was surrounded by groceries for meals that no one was going to eat. I stared at my dining table, set with new plates and neatly folded napkins. The house had felt so full of promise. Now, it just felt empty and silent. I tried to call each of them. I offered different dates, different plans, anything to try and save our get-together. My calls went to voicemail. My texts were not answered. Only my mom replied. She just repeated what she had said about Dad's health and promised they would visit soon. Saturday morning was bright and sunny. The beautiful spring day seemed to be mocking me. The welcome baskets were still sitting on the guest beds. No one had slept in them. I walked through the day like a robot. I put away the groceries that would spoil. I covered the dishes I had already prepared with plastic wrap. In the afternoon, I finally gave up. I changed out of the nice outfit I had picked out. I put on a comfortable pair of jeans and a t-shirt. I sat on the living room floor, surrounded by boxes I still hadn't unpacked. I started organizing my books and kitchen things. I tried to focus on the physical work instead of the heavy weight on my chest. My house was supposed to be filled with the sound of my family's laughter. Instead, it was silent. The only sound was my phone pinging every once in a while. They were work emails and social media alerts, but nothing from my family. Their silence was louder than any words. Especially the silence from my dad. He had never even replied to my invitation or said he was sorry he couldn't come. As it got dark, I ordered a pizza. I didn't have the heart to cook any of the special food I had planned. I sat cross-legged on the floor among the half-empty boxes. I scrolled through home design websites on my tablet. I forced myself to think about the future instead of the disappointment of the present. That's when my dad's text came. The notification made my heart jump with a little bit of hope. "We need to talk about the house," was all it said. There was no congratulations, no apology for missing my dinner. Just 7 words that felt heavy and threatening. My fingers trembled over the screen of my phone. The pizza sat next to me, forgotten. My dad hardly ever sent texts. He usually made quick phone calls or had my mom pass on a message. The fact that he texted me directly meant this was important. I couldn't ignore it. Even though it was late, I called him right away. My heart was pounding. He answered on the second ring. His hello was rough and had no warmth in it. "Dad, I got your text. Is everything okay?" I asked. I tried to keep my voice calm, even though I was feeling anxious. "Your mother's upset," he said, getting straight to the point. "She's been crying ever since you sent those pictures of the house." I was confused. "Crying? Why? Is she all right?" "No, Justine, she's not all right," he said. His voice got harder. "None of us are okay with this little show you're putting on." "Show?" I said. I was completely bewildered. "What are you talking about?" "This fancy house in that snooty neighborhood. The dinner invitation, like you're some kind of fancy lady from one of those magazines your mother reads. It's not you, Justine. It's not the daughter we raised." His words hit me like a punch. I leaned back against an unopened box. I was trying to understand what he was saying. "Dad, I worked for years to buy this house. You know that. I saved every penny. I worked more than one job. This isn't a show. This is the result of 10 years of hard work." "Hard work," he scoffed. "Is that what you call it? Turning your back on your family. You stopped coming to Sunday dinners because you were too busy with your office job and your side business. You moved to a neighborhood where your own father doesn't even feel comfortable visiting." His voice got louder with every question, until he was almost shouting. I could hear my mom in the background, telling him to calm down. "I never turn my back on anyone," I said. My own voice was getting louder to match his. "I invited all of you here this weekend. I made up rooms for every one of you. I cooked all your favorite foods. Nobody came. Because we don't belong in a house like that," he yelled. "Your mother took one look at those hardwood floors and that fancy kitchen, and she knew she'd be scared to touch anything. Adam said it made him feel sick to see those pictures. He knows he'll never be able to afford anything like that on what he makes in construction. Even Natalie felt it. She said you were just showing off, making it clear how much better you are than us now. Tears came to my eyes. His words hurt more than he could ever know. That was never what I wanted. I wanted to share this with you. I didn't want to make anyone feel bad. Well, you failed, he said coldly. Your mother thinks you're embarrassed of where you came from. She thinks you bought this house to get away from your past, to get away from us. That's not true, I whispered. But a little bit of doubt started to creep into my mind. Had I chosen a neighborhood so different from my childhood home on purpose? Was it a way of rejecting them? Isn't it? My dad went on. And when was the last time you brought any of your work friends home to meet us? When was the last time you even talked about your family at that fancy office of yours? Do your coworkers even know that your father works in construction and your mother cleans houses? His questions hit a nerve I didn't even know I had. I had always kept the two parts of my life separate. My background was separate from my work life. I had told myself it wasn't because I was ashamed. It was because I wanted people to judge me for who I was, not for where I came from. I am proud of where I came from, I insisted. My voice was breaking. Everything I've accomplished is because of what you and Mom taught me about working hard. Save it. My dad cut me off. Actions speak louder than words, Justine. And your actions say you're building a life that doesn't have room for us. This house is just the final proof. I could hear my mom's voice get louder in the background. My dad must have covered the phone because I couldn't hear what they were saying. When he came back on the line, his tone had changed. He wasn't angry anymore. He just sounded defeated. Your mother wants me to tell you that she loves you no matter what, he said, like he was reading from a script. But I have to be honest with you, Justine. This changes things between us. If you keep showing off your success and making the rest of us feel bad, there are going to be consequences for our relationship. Consequences? I said. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you threatening to cut me out of your life because I bought a house? Because I was successful? Call it whatever you want, he said in a cold voice. Just know that your choices have consequences. They always have. The call ended suddenly. I was left sitting in stunned silence. The pizza was getting cold in its box, completely forgotten. The emptiness of the house suddenly felt heavy and suffocating, not peaceful. Every room seemed to be a reminder of what I had supposedly chosen over my family. I walked through the house in a daze. I touched the walls, the door frames, the countertops that had made me so happy just a few days ago. Now, every beautiful detail felt spoiled by what my father had said. The empty guest rooms seemed to mock me. The welcome baskets were a pathetic reminder of my failed hopes. In the master bedroom, I saw my reflection in the mirror. I was wearing designer jeans and a casual shirt that probably cost more than my father spent on clothes in a whole year. When did that happen? When did I start spending $80 on a shirt? Without even thinking about it. I grew up watching my mother mend socks instead of buying new ones. Had success changed me in ways I hadn't even noticed? Had I, in my effort to escape my family's money problems, also escaped from the very people who had made me who I was? These questions circled in my mind as I sat down on the edge of my new bed. The night seemed to stretch on forever. It was a dark canvas for my painful thoughts and self-doubt. I couldn't sleep at all. I kept replaying conversations from years past. I was trying to find the exact moment when my success started to push my family away. By the time the sun came up, my eyes were puffy from crying. But my mind was clearer than it had been in a long time. The house wasn't the problem. My success wasn't the problem. The real issue was much deeper. It was about complicated family relationships and expectations. I had both met those expectations and defied them. The morning sun streamed through the windows that had no curtains yet. It made long shadows on my bedroom floor. My night of painful thinking had made one thing very clear. I couldn't control how my family reacted, but I could control how I responded. That thought was both freeing and terrifying. After a shower and a cup of coffee, I sat down at my new dining table and opened my laptop. The words were hard to find at first, but they were honest. I wrote, deleted, and rewrote my message several times. This was more than just an answer to my dad's accusations. It was me setting boundaries that I should have set years ago. The final text was longer than my usual messages, but every word felt important. Dad, Mom, Natalie, and Adam. I spent all night thinking about our conversation and why you weren't here yesterday. This is hard for me to write, but I need you to understand. First, I love all of you very much. Nothing about my job or this house changes that. You are my roots. You are my foundation. The work ethic that allowed me to build this life came from watching Dad work double shifts and Mom juggle multiple jobs. Every sacrifice you made for us taught me how to keep going. But loving you doesn't mean I have to make myself smaller to make you feel comfortable. My success is not a rejection of how I was raised. It is the result of the potential you gave me. When I look at this house, I don't see a way to escape my past. I see a physical symbol of the lessons you taught me. I will not apologize for working hard and reaching my goals. I will not pretend I haven't earned this just to make others feel better. Most importantly, I will not sell this house or downplay what I've accomplished to save relationships that should be stronger because of my success, not threatened by it. The door to this home will always be open to every one of you. It will be open whenever you are ready to walk through it, without feeling bitter or judgmental. I created spaces in this house specifically for you. A guest room with a firm mattress that Dad needs for his back. A backyard where Mom and I could plant a garden together. A room for Natalie's kids to play. I even found some local breweries I thought Adam and I could check out together. I am not choosing this house over my family. I am choosing to believe that we can grow together instead of growing apart. I am choosing to believe that love is not measured by square footage or mortgage payments. This door will always be open to you, but I will not close it on my dreams. I hope that one day you will understand that my success honors everything you gave me. It does not reject it. Love always, Justine. My finger hovered over the send button for a few minutes. This message would either start to heal our family, or it would make the divide between us even wider. There was no in between. Finally, I pressed send. I put my phone down and turned my attention to unpacking my books and putting them on the built-in shelves. The replies came one by one. Each one told me something about my relationships. My mom was the first to call. Her voice was thick with tears. I never meant to make you feel bad about what you've accomplished, she started. I am so proud of you, Justine. I always have been. It's hard to watch you create a life that's so different from the one I could give you. You gave me everything that was important, Mom, I said softly. Love, values, strength. The rest is just stuff. We talked for almost an hour. It was the first truly honest conversation we had had in years. She admitted that she felt intimidated by my career and my financial stability. She confessed that my father's anger was partly because of his own feelings of failure. He wanted to give us so much more than he was able to, she explained. Seeing you achieve what he couldn't, it's complicated for him. I understand that, I said. But I need him to see that my success is his success, too. Everything I am started with you and him. We ended the call with a plan for her to visit by herself the following weekend. Just us girls, she suggested. Your father needs more time. Natalie texted me next. Her message was surprisingly honest. I lied about Emma being sick. The truth is, I was jealous and ashamed. Troy and I can barely pay our rent, and seeing your beautiful house made me feel like a failure. I'm so sorry. Your message made me cry. Can we start over? I called her right away. Our conversation brought up years of competitive feelings that I had never even realized were there. As the older sister who always seemed to do everything right, I had become a standard that she felt she could never live up to. My achievements had become a way for her to measure her own life choices. I have never thought less of your choices, I told her. You have beautiful children and a loving husband. Those are successes that can't be measured in money or property. We ended our call with a plan for her to visit the next month, once she had some time to work through her feelings. Adam didn't contact me for 3 days. Then he sent a short text. Need time to process. Not ready to talk yet. It was the most honest thing he had said to me in years. I respected his need for space and didn't push him. My dad's response was the most painful. A week went by with no word from him. Then, a birthday card came in the mail. Inside was a gift card to a home improvement store. There was no note with it. But the gift itself was a small acknowledgement of my new house. It was a tiny step toward acceptance. The weeks that followed were a mix of sadness and freedom. I missed the easy relationships I used to have with my family. But it was also a relief to stop pretending that everything was okay between us. The honest talks, even though they were painful, felt like clearing the air. I threw myself into making the house my own. I painted walls. I arranged and rearranged furniture. I put up window treatments. Every choice was based on my own taste and what I needed, not on what other people might think. It was a kind of freedom I had never allowed myself before. One day, a coworker asked me about my weekend plans. I told her I was redoing the guest bathroom. "Will your family be visiting to see the changes?" she asked casually. For the first time, I answered without making excuses or trying to make things sound better than they were. "We're working through some complicated feelings about my move. Family relationships can be challenging sometimes, but we're figuring it out, one step at a time." She nodded and shared a similar story about her own family. It made me realize that what I was going through was not unique. The perfect family image I had tried to maintain had only made me feel more alone. This realization led me to another important decision. I joined a networking group for first-generation professionals. I connected with other people who were trying to navigate the space between their family roots and their own achievements. Their stories of similar family problems helped me see that I wasn't alone. 3 months after the failed family dinner, I had my first real gathering in my new house. It wasn't for my family. It was for the friends and colleagues who had supported me along the way. As glasses clinked and laughter filled the rooms that had once felt so empty, I felt the house changing. It was no longer a symbol of what divided us. It was a symbol of new beginnings. 6 months after I moved in, my house finally felt like a home. The living room walls were no longer bare. They were covered with a mix of art from local artists and personal photos. The kitchen had become my happy place on weekends. I experimented with new recipes that were much more complex than anything I had ever tried in my tiny apartment kitchen. The garden beds, which were empty when I bought the house, were now full of herbs and flowers. It was the result of weekend work that left dirt under my fingernails and a feeling of deep satisfaction in my heart. On a warm Saturday evening, my dining room table was finally used for a real dinner party. 8 people sat around the table that had been empty on that first weekend. There were colleagues from my job, neighbors from down the street, and friends from my first-generation professionals group. The wine flowed freely. The conversation jumped from topic to topic. Laughter filled the rooms that had once felt so huge and empty. To Justine, my next-door neighbor, Diane said, raising her glass, who not only brought this beautiful old house back to life, but also filled it with warmth and love. Her words touched me deeply. This was exactly what I had imagined when I first walked through the house. It wasn't just about owning walls and a roof. It was about creating a space where people could connect. My relationship with my family was still complicated. There were small steps forward, and sometimes steps back. Natalie was the first one to truly cross the divide. She came to visit by herself at first, almost like it was a secret. She was testing the waters to see if it was safe. "This is really beautiful, Justine," she said, running her hand along the original wood trim. "I can see why you fell in love with it." That first visit led to more. Eventually, she brought Troy and the kids. Watching her 5-year-old son, Jack, run through the backyard, building little houses for fairies under the old oak tree, healed something in both of us. Her daughter, Emma, sat on the garden path, arranging small pebbles in a line. "They love coming here," Natalie admitted on her 3rd visit. "Jack asked me yesterday if we could move to a house with pretty windows like Auntie Justine's." My mom started a new routine. She would come for coffee on Wednesday mornings. It was when my dad had his weekly physical therapy appointment. At first, her visits were a little awkward. She would sit on the very edge of the sofa, as if she was afraid to take up too much space. But slowly, she started to relax. She even helped me pick out curtains for the living room and suggested where to hang family photos. "I brought something for you," she said one Wednesday. She pulled a small box out of her purse. Inside was my grandmother's china teacup and saucer. It was a family heirloom that I had loved since I was a little girl. It belongs here now, with you. Her gesture meant so much. It was an acknowledgement that this house, even though it was so different from our family's other homes, was now a part of our shared history. Adam kept the most distance. He would reply to my text sometimes, but he always said no when I invited him to visit. Our relationship had always been a little strained. He had been resentful of my good grades ever since high school. But there were small signs of change. When he needed help writing a resume for a job, he called me himself instead of asking my mom to ask me. "The place looks nice in the background," he said during our video call. He had noticed the built-in bookshelves behind me. "You always had a good eye for that kind of stuff." Coming from Adam, that was high praise. My dad was the last one holding out. He had not set foot in my house. But my mom told me that he would ask her questions about it after her visits. After the birthday card with the home improvement gift card, he sent a Christmas card signed with just his name. There was no message. These small gestures gave me hope. But they didn't solve the problem. Healing came from places I didn't expect. I joined the neighborhood association and volunteered at the community garden. I was putting down roots of a different kind. These new friendships gave me a new perspective on my family. My neighbors shared similar stories of how their own success had caused problems in their families. My father didn't speak to me for 2 years after I got my doctorate. Maria, a professor who lived 3 doors down, told me. He only had an 8th grade education. He felt like my degree was somehow a criticism of him. It took a long time, but he eventually came around. Sometimes people just need time to get used to a new version of you. The biggest change in my own thinking came from therapy. I started going 4 months after the failed family dinner. My weekly sessions helped me understand my complicated feelings about success, family loyalty, and who I was. Your success doesn't make anyone else less worthy, my therapist told me during one difficult session. And their discomfort with your success is not something you need to fix by making yourself smaller. This new perspective freed me from the guilt that had been hanging over my accomplishments. I started to celebrate my achievements openly. I got a big promotion at work. I finished restoring the front porch. I didn't immediately worry about how my family would react. 9 months after I moved in, I got an unexpected text from my dad. "Your mother says the gutters need to be cleaned before winter. Do you have someone to do that?" The message was not warm or personal, but it was huge. It showed concern for my house. It was an acknowledgement that it was important. And maybe, it was an indirect offer of his help. I got some quotes, but I haven't hired anyone yet. I replied carefully, "Do you have any recommendations?" His reply came surprisingly fast. "Those companies will overcharge you. I could come and take a look next weekend if you want." My hands were shaking a little as I typed back that I would like that. When I called my mom to confirm, she admitted that my dad had been thinking about offering to help for weeks. He had been working up the courage to offer this small sign of peace in the only way he knew how. The next Saturday, I saw the surreal sight of my father's truck parked in my driveway. He got out wearing his work clothes. He gave me a short nod, as if he was just arriving for a regular job, and not for his first visit to his daughter's home. My mom was with him. Her nervous smile showed how important this moment was. "Nice place," he said in his rough voice. He looked at the outside of the house with a professional eye. "They don't build them like this anymore." Coming from my dad, this was a huge compliment. I gave them the tour I had planned 9 months earlier. I watched my dad's eyes get a little wider as he saw the craftsmanship of the original woodwork. I saw my mom's fingers trail across the kitchen countertops that she had only seen in pictures before. In the backyard, my dad checked the gutters while I held the ladder for him. The familiar feeling of working with him, passing him tools, and following his instructions, helped to close some of the distance between us. "You did good, Justine," he said quietly, as we were packing up his tools. It wasn't, "I'm proud of you," or, "I'm sorry," but it was an acknowledgement of what I had achieved. It was something that had cost him a lot to say. I accepted it for the huge step that it was. That evening, I sat on my porch swing and watched the sunset paint my garden with golden light. I thought about the long and complicated journey of the past year. The house that had seemed to break my family apart was now offering a different kind of foundation. It was a foundation where real relationships could be rebuilt, one careful brick at a time. I realized that home wasn't just about the physical space or the financial success it represented. Home was about creating a place where I could be my true self, while still keeping the door open to the people who had made me who I am, no matter how complicated our relationships might be. The road ahead wouldn't be easy or straight. Some wounds might take years to heal completely, if they ever did. But as I sat there, watching the shadows grow longer across my garden, I felt a sense of peace. I knew that true success means honoring your journey, without having to apologize for how far you've come. Have you ever had to deal with the complicated feelings that can come with outgrowing your past? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more about family, growth, and what it means to create a home. Like and share this if you know someone who might need to hear that they don't have to apologize for their success. Thank you for being here with me today. And remember, the most beautiful homes are built on a foundation of being true to yourself, not on being perfect.